What's up, leader, and welcome to another episode of the L3 Leadership Podcast, where we are obsessed with helping you grow to your maximum potential and to maximize the impact of your leadership. My name is Doug Smith, and I am your host, and we recorded this episode from our Burgo Realty Studios. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I am so glad that you're here, and I hope that you enjoy our content and become a subscriber so you can tune in every week. And if you've been listening to us for a while, it would mean the world to me if you'd leave us a rating and review. That helps us to grow our audience, so thank you in advance for that. In this week's episode, you're going to hear my conversation with Dr. Meg Meeker, who I first heard about through her amazing book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, which I'd highly recommend if you're a dad with daughters. But she is incredible. She is a go-to resource for families, and that's exactly what we talk about in the episode. We talk about all things family, and you're going to love this episode. And again, if you're not following Dr. Meeker's work, please do, and you're going to love this episode. But before we dive in, here's a word from our sponsor, Endosha Marketing Solutions.
At Endosha, we help transform visions into results. What does that mean? We often work with companies who are doing amazing things that have incredible products and services, but fail to communicate what they do properly and market themselves effectively. We passionately serve entrepreneurs, business leaders, and visionaries to see what's in their heart and their visions for the future come to life. We do that by providing fractional marketing leadership and creative execution all in one. That's what we call VCMO. With VCMO, you get a marketing director and a team of creative professionals to help execute all of your marketing needs, all for one monthly cost. How do we do all this? We do it three ways. Number one, we get your vision. We get excited about your mission and your trajectory as a company and come alongside to see you go further, faster. Two, we have a team of talented strategists and creatives to get all of the work done. And three, we flat out work freaking hard for you and your company. Reach out today. Let's start a conversation.
And with all that said, let's dive right in. Here's my conversation with Dr. Meg Meeker. Dr. Meg Meeker, you've been on my bucket list to interview literally for probably a decade, so I'm so glad that this is finally happening. So much I want to cover today on parenting and really focusing in on dads. But I just want to start by asking you, you've given your life to investing in parents and specifically investing in dads. Like, why do you feel like that was so important that you want to give your life to it?
You know, when I came out of my residency, I knew I wanted to take care of kids. And I learned very early on, within the first 5 years, if I wanted to take care of kids, I had to help their parents because parents are it for kids. You know, I can tell kids what to do and I can tell kids how to do this, but parents really have all the power. It isn't teachers, it isn't coaches, it isn't even peers, it's parents. So then I began to invest in parents. And then as my practice went along, I saw that the kids whose dads came in periodically with them on visits did much better as far as getting over depression, anxiety, eating disorders. And I was intrigued by that. So I started researching on the impact of dads on their kids. And one of the things that disturbed me is there's a lot more research on moms and kids. But on dads and kids, there's, it's probably 5 to 1. And I thought, wait a minute, dads have this incredible power and they don't know it. Then our culture started to bash dads and to marginalize dads. Homer Simpson, Adam Sandler. Find a great dad on TV. It's kind of hard. And so I saw a disconnect. I thought, wait a minute, dads are incredibly important. I'm seeing it. And yet dads are being told through media and wherever that they're really not, that it's all about mom. So I need to learn about dads. I need to tell dads what their kids are saying about them. And then I need to communicate that. And so it's really been, once I started forward, there was no going back because dads' responses have been quite positive because I've really tried to just open their kids' hearts to them and their minds, and dads respond beautifully. So it's really where I landed. It's really where I landed probably 7 years ago. So somebody from the NFL office called my assistant and said, "We want you to work off the NFL." And I said, "No, they have the wrong person. You have a middle-aged grandmother here. It's not going to work." And I said, "Okay." So about 6 months later, they called again. I said, "Okay, I'll meet with them." Very interestingly, these men really wanted to know how to communicate to their kids because many of them didn't have dads growing up. And I said, "Okay, well, I'm not a dad, but I can tell you what kids tell me they want from their dads. And so once I told them that, it's like a light bulb went off.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, because many grow up in a matriarchal culture, I became a surrogate matriarch. I was a generation ahead of them. And so they would listen and absorb, but they literally said, we have all this expertise and power on the field. We get paid millions of dollars to do what we know well. And then we go home and we don't have a clue what to do.
Wow.
And so that's where I came in. And that's when the whole father thing just began to take shape. And so I talk to fathers. I'll talk to any dad anywhere, anytime. So I just love it. Plus, there's nobody, I don't know any other woman out there doing it. And I thought, ladies, where are you? Why aren't you encouraging men? And I think it is because you almost feel that if you're going to champion women, you can't champion men.
Hmm.
It's an either or, which is ridiculous, but that's kind of where we've come to.
Yeah, I heard someone tell me once, well, one, nationally, there's a local conference here put on by a nonprofit called Man Up, and it's encouraging men to be better dads. And if be a great dad to your kids, be a great dad to other kids, and so on and so forth. And they just highlight the epidemic of fatherlessness in our nation.
Yep.
And the
Yep.
statistics that go to that. I'd be curious, just what's your insight into that, and how can we really put a dent in that issue?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that we've arrived here from a lot of different factors at work at once. I was in the heart of the women's lib movement in the 1970s. And at that point, we didn't have as much fatherlessness. And
Hmm.
I'm not blaming it all on feminism. However, women were taught through messages that went out to our culture, men and women alike. We got it. You know, at first, we can be better than you at your careers, and then we can be better at you and your careers and parenting. Oh, and now guess what? We don't even really need you. We have
Hmm.
this surge of women, particularly in Hollywood, who are having babies by themselves because they want to be mothers. Well, what a horrible thing to do to a child.
Wow.
So we have the cultural messages to dad, just step aside. We really don't need you. We have messages from strong-willed women to say, you know what, I got this. I even found myself in my own home communicating to my husband, not overtly, but you know what, you don't really know how to talk to girls. I got this. And that's a
Hmm.
terrible thing. I think that divorce, the increased amount of divorce, and once a couple divorces, usually depends on your state, dads get the shaft. Moms get the kids through the week, and dads get kids every other weekend. So that pushes a dad out of a child's life. Once that dad has been pretty much out of the child's life for 5 years, they've shown, then dads just sort of give up and back
Hmm.
away and go, you
Wow.
know what, I'm really not needed. And then, of course, in different socioeconomic levels in our strata, in our culture, it doesn't pay to be married. As
Hmm.
a single mom, you get a lot more money if you're a single mom than if you're married. So a lot of these kids just really kind of the dads just get pushed aside. So it's social. I think it's personal relationships. I think that divorce crushes dads. I had a dad expert tell me one time, this is intriguing. Every divorced man should be considered at higher risk for suicide. And I said,
Wow.
really? He said, yeah, because what happens emotionally and psychologically to a man right after divorce can be devastating. And a big part of that is feeling like a failure with your kids. Because by and large, your kids are pulled away from you. They're given to mom. And that really isn't fair.
So I would be curious, just on that note, if someone's listening to this and they are a single father, they've experienced divorce, or for whatever reason, what would your encouragement be to them?
Never, never, never give up on your kids, even if you see your kids every other weekend. What happens to a lot of dads is they feel like failures. They feel insecure in their relationships with their kids, and they feel their kids don't want them, particularly if you have an ex, a wife who's bad mouthing you.
Mm,
Dads
wow.
become very discouraged. And I want to say to those dads, your kid may, for a while in the teen years, talk badly about you, not want to be with you, but take the high road, because I will guarantee you, once that child hits 2021, they're going to recognize you're a good guy and they'll come right back to you. So if you can just hang on Kids know in the depth of their heart that nothing replaces a dad. Mom cannot replace a dad. Moms don't like to hear it, but it's true. And so your child always, always wants a deeper connection with you, but you will feel like they're going away, but hold on and never give up and just hang on during those really tough years, because you have, God willing, your child hits 20 and you have, decades ahead with your child. So don't give up, because you're far more important to your kids than you have any clue. Kids who don't have a good relationship with their dad hurt forever. They just
Mm,
hurt forever. And I
wow.
always say, kids, men and women, take one man to their grave. It's your dad. If you
Wow.
had a broken relationship, you want more healing until you die, really. If you had a good relationship with your dad, you just want more time. And
Wow.
so most kids don't feel neutral about their dads. Think about it. You can feel neutral about a
Mm.
teacher or a coach or a friend. When it comes to your dad, you either adore him or you cry when you hear his name. That's how
Well,
that's how that's how critically important dads are, even divorced dads. So
wow. Well, thank you for encouraging it. And even for me as a dad, greatly encouraging to know the impact that we can have. Um, you've given your life to this, and thank you for investing in dads. You've written 7 books, you offer coaching, all these different things to dads. I heard someone say once, I think it was Jeremy Pryor, he said, most people only have one model of what family should look like, and that's the family they grew up in. I'm just curious if people have one model and it was a negative one,
mhm.
before we can really even start to think about how can I be a great dad, how can people overcome maybe the trauma or the wounds that they experienced in their childhood and the family they experienced before they can even set a solid foundation to be a great dad?
It's a great question. And I talk about this with dads. Every father comes into parenting with a preload. Okay.
Mm.
And your preload is your experience as a child with a dad or without a dad. And unfortunately, unless you address those major issues that you experienced as a child, you will bring that into your parenting. And subconsciously, if dad was a yeller and you thought, I can't wait to get away from this guy, I can't stand him, you have a pretty good chance of being a yeller to your kids because that's what you know.
Mm.
So you default to what you know. So here's what I encourage dads to do. It's a painful experience. You got to take a good friend who's a guy, a counselor, pastor, whatever, and you need to walk back through to the deepest pains that you experienced in your family with your dad. And you need to face them. And you may not resolve them completely, but you know what they are. So that moving forward, you can say, you know what, it crushed me whenever my dad yelled, or my dad hit, or my dad never showed up. And so I know that hurt terribly, but as I move forward, I will not yell at my kids. Even
Mm.
though I'm tempted to yell at my kids, I won't. Even though I'm tempted to leave my kids like my dad left me or not engage with them, I won't. So you can only change a behavior if you know what you're changing from. So, even just tackling one or two or your deep pains in your childhood, and everybody has them, but some are much deeper than others, fathers. And then they realize how much it hurt, and they are going to make a big effort not to bring them into their parenting. And that's really where a lot of the healing starts, is in parenting. Because if you
Mm.
had a dad who yelled, you know it hurt a lot. You know how it hurt, why it hurt, when it hurt, and you move forward and you don't yell to your kids, you begin to reestablish a healthy relationship with a child. And that begins to heal you as a child, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and so parenting can be such a rich, healing, wonderful experience for dads. But if you go into it not being willing to face what happened in the past, it could be much more painful, and it'll be more painful for your kids.
That's so powerful. I remember now I have a great relationship with my dad now, but there are things I remember in my early 20s that I was disappointed in the way I was raised by and very frustrated with him. And I was having devotions one day and I was reading Hebrews 12 and it talks about God as our father. And
Mhm.
it said our earthly fathers disciplined us for a while. And then it just said doing the best that they knew how. And I just felt like God really healed me through that and made me have this revelation of like, hey, my dad may not have had the same equipping or same knowledge that I have, at 20. But he did the best he could. And, given the circumstances he grew up with, like, which I have no idea about. And it just gave me such a different perspective on my dad and even the things that he neglected to put in me. And man, it just made me love him so much more. And going to that place was so healing. And I don't know if I could be the dad I am today had I not gone there. So thank you for your encouragement there.
You bet. You bet. And God, God is so magnificent because he is an incredible father. But a lot of people, men and women, who carry father wounds have a hard time relating to God because that father stumbling block. But you're absolutely right to look at your dad and go, he carried his preload into parenting you. And so he was putting onto you something that was put onto him.
Yeah.
And so he didn't mean to do that. He
Have,
didn't
have,
want to do that. It's just what came out because nobody schooled him. Nobody helped him like you're doing now with the dads out there. Probably nobody taught him.
yeah. Have you ever seen the movie The Shack?
Yes.
Oh man, that for those listening, if you haven't seen it, it's a hard movie to watch, but it's phenomenal.
Mhm. Mhm.
That scene where he gets to see his dad in heaven, and then he got a glimpse of what his dad's experience was with his
Mhm.
dad, and they hug, and he said, "I'm sorry, son, I didn't know any better." I mean, I want to cry now. Oh, so powerful.
And so many dads feel that way.
Mm,
So many, I'll never forget. My dad died of Alzheimer's, and I was very attached to my
mm,
father. And he was not a man of many words, but I'll never forget walking with him probably in the last 6 months of his life. And he knew me, but we would sort of shuffle around and he stopped dead in his tracks and he looked at me and he said, Meg, am I forgiven? And I said, well, Dad, by whom? He said, well, by you and mother and your brother and sister. And I said, yes, you are.
mm,
And then he said, but does God forgive me? And I said, yes, he does. See, even in his broken mind, he knew that he'd hurt everybody because he's
mm,
human, but he desperately wanted forgiveness so that we knew he didn't mean it.
mm,
And that I will tell you, my dad didn't, I mean, I had hurts from my own dad too, but in that moment, they were healed because I knew my dad meant it. He wanted it, and he didn't make his mistakes out of choice.
mm.
They came from somewhere in him.
So that brings up another question. If a dad is listening to this, or a mom for that matter, and maybe they have grandkids now or their kids are grown now of the house and they're just overwhelmed with regret, even if they're still married, they didn't abandon their kids. Maybe they just know things now that they wish they could have done better. Maybe they have a
Mhm.
broken relationship with their child. What would your encouragement be to them in this stage of their life?
Yeah, that's a great question because first of all, um, every child, adult, doesn't matter how old they are, wants to reconcile with their moms, particularly your dad. So you could be 7-year-old dad and your kid is 50. They want reconciliation. So this is what you do. You sit down and you try to think about the things that you did to your child that may have been hurtful because
Mm,
you weren't them, you don't know. And then you face them and you go, man, I really messed up there. And then if you're really estranged, you haven't talked to this kid in 10 years, you write a letter and you
mm,
say, I am so deeply sorry for how I hurt you. I don't blame you for, disengaging with me. And then your kid won't respond. And then you do it another month and another month and another month. But here's the bottom line. Over time, you gently pursue that child, adult or 5-year-old, and you go to them and say, I am so sorry for, very specifically, for yelling at you. But you don't stop there. I am so sorry for yelling at you and for making you feel so insignificant or
mm,
so badly or so sad. Because what kids want you to do is to recognize how you made them feel and
yeah.
how much that hurt. So if you can't go and say, I'm sorry for all the bad things I did to you. That's meaningless.
Mm,
I'm so sorry for, and then how that made you feel. And if you don't know how the kid felt, you say, I'm so sorry for yelling at you. How did that feel? And you
wow.
sit there and listen because you can take it. You take it on the chin, but you can listen. That's the only way you heal with your child. And if you don't know what you did that hurt your child, you say to them, clearly I hurt you deeply. And I just am not understanding. Please tell me what it was that I did that hurt you so deeply. And how did it make you feel when I did that?
Hmm.
And then you sit there and you listen. And your kid will probably explode or cry or whatever, but they'll be blown over that you said that and you meant it. You know, I've seen kids. Okay, I had two girls who were sexually abused. Dad goes to prison. They still wanted to communicate with their dad. Why? Because even though he hurt them terribly, there's this sort of gold thread that runs from them to their dad. He's still their dad.
Hmm.
He's still their dad. And he was very repentant. That doesn't mean that they could spend any time with him. But what I'm saying is the human heart is very, very complicated.
Hmm.
And even children's hearts are very complicated. So that's what I encourage every dad to do. Face what you did, apologize, face how you made your kids feel, apologize, ask for forgiveness, and then let it be. But a lot of it's going to be listening and just taking it on the chin and sitting there.
Wow. What you just shared is pure gold. And I would just encourage if someone's listening to this and you're saying, I feel like you're speaking to me, I feel like I'm supposed to do that. That's me. Please don't take time to act on this. Go home and write the letter now. Make the call now. Have the conversation now. Because if you put it off, I just know how those things work. It'll end up never happening. And so if you feel prompted, I just want to encourage anyone listening to this to go for that. Well, we covered a lot of heavy stuff so far.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'll just say, hey, if we're caught up at the foundation now, you've written, again, several books. Your latest one called Hero, Being the Strong Father Your Children Need. Probably most people's most favorite book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. I want to just dive into just parenting. And I would encourage anyone listening to this, get all of Dr. Meeker's books. And she's also now offering, I guess, just mid-commercial, you're now getting into coaching. And so
Mhm.
fathers, if you're out there listening to this, do you just want to give them a brief overview of how they can connect you with you there before we dive into how we can start parenting our kids better?
You bet. I'm starting my coaching in April, getting all geared up. If anybody's interesting, it's going to be all over my website, meekerparenting.com. And I'm going to be doing via Zoom live coaching with small groups, 25 men, and then 50 men. Men's wives can come on. I'm not excluding wives at all. My point is to help fathers understand how their kids see them, what they want from them, and how they feel towards their dads, because that's the key in having a good relationship with your kid. Because you're going to tell you, I need to this and I need to this and I need to get them to soccer. That's not what kids want.
Mm.
Kids want their dads. They want their dad's heart. So I'm starting the coaching and I do one-on-one private coaching. Not tons and tons of that. But the coaching that I've done, so far, just a men's group, Bible study groups, anything, has been very, very popular. So I just decided to make it legit. And I'm really excited about that because that's really my heart. Seeing somebody on the screen, what are you struggling with? What's your problem? No question is off limits. None. Zero. I've
Mm.
heard everything. And I know you dads because I've listened to your kids. I've listened to thousands of kids over 35 years talk about their dads. So I can tell you exactly what your kids would say about you because kids aren't all that different when it comes from what they need from their dads.
Mm. And please take advantage of this. And, I heard someone just tell me once that the kids who have a troubled youth, the number one way that they can get out of tough situations is having someone, usually another adult, show them a different way of life. And, as I mentioned earlier, often we've only seen one way modeled a family. So to be able to take advantage of Dr. Meeker's years and years of experience could show you a whole different way to parent that you never have.
Mhm.
So we'll include links to all of that in the show notes. So make sure that you check that out. And now I want to dive in because as we were talking about before the show, I have 4 kids under 7. And
Mhm.
so I have all kind of questions, but I thought it would be fun maybe to take the general age categories that I see kids wrapped up in are 0 to 5, 5 to 12, 13 to 18, and 18 and beyond. So I would love to take that 0 to 5, which is where 3 out of my 4 kids are at.
Sure.
What do parents and dads and moms need to know at this age to successfully lay a great foundation for their kids?
Sure. Keep it simple. Very, very, very simple. During the first 5 years, these are the years where you need to form strong attachments with your kids. We focus on mom attaching to the kids, breastfeeding, the skin to skin contact, but dads need to attach as well. And so moms out there listening need to know sometimes I need to move aside and let dad attach to my child. So 0 to 1, if you're breastfeeding your baby, you need to pump, you need to put some in a bottle, and you need to let dad rock and feed the baby. That's a
Wow.
big attachment time. Then from 1 to 5, kids are still wanting to attach to their dads. So the thing is, spend time with them. You don't have to spend huge chunks of time with them because you work 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here. Put your phone down, look them in the eyes, touch them, sit with them, color with them, kick a ball with them. Because when you spend time with your kid doing anything, your kid feels like, wow, I'm really important because my dad's with me. See, they feel like it's okay to have my mom with me, but my mom has to be with me. This is just in a kid's mind. Okay. This is what they
Yeah.
tell me. I'm not saying this is what they tell me. But when my dad chooses to sit down and color with me or chooses to take me to the grocery store, I am something because my dad likes my company. And then show affection to your kids. There's no better time where your kids will receive affection from you during those early years to about 8. And then pre-puberty, it changes. So take advantage of that time because the solid attachments that you form with your kids in the first 5 years will set them on a fabulous path because, you are modeling to them when you as a dad show your kids what to expect from maleness, from men. So if you prove in the first 5 years of their life that they can trust you because you're going to follow through and do what you say, that they can receive your love because it's there, you're affectionate, you're open. If you withhold love, then they think, well, kind of what's wrong with me.
Mm.
Everything that another male person does as they get older, they will compare to you.
Mm.
Okay. So you set that standard. If you never swear in the home and they go to school and they're in second grade and they hear somebody swear in the hall, they're going to go, "You're a dumbo. My dad would never do that." See what I mean? So
Yes. Yeah.
you set the template
Come on.
for how they expect men to behave. Very important for girls, because
Mm.
every time a teenage girl goes out with a boy, whether she's connected to you or not, she compares that guy to her dad.
Mm.
And if dad takes the high road and dad is courteous and he's polite and he's kind and he's respectful, the minute she is disrespected in a relationship, something's going to go off in her and hopefully she'll go, "Get out of here."
Mm.
But in other words, so you are setting a template for what your kids moving forward can expect from a man. So you want to give them all good things. They can trust you. They can be affectionate with you. They can receive their love. They can know that you're going to be honest, that you're, mild tempered or whatever. So that's how important the first 5 years are.
I would love to just hear your thoughts because I'm in that season now. What are your thoughts on correction and discipline in that time? Like, what should that look like, or what have you found is most effective and not
Yeah.
leaving long-term negative impact? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, don't be afraid. All kids need boundaries, period. That's
Mm.
all discipline is all about. Susie, you're 2. You cannot cook with mom right now because the gas is on, whatever. So you have to have very clear boundaries. Yes, you can this. No, you can't do that. And you tell them to the kids very simply. Don't overspeak to your kids because a 2 and a 3 and a 4-year-old probably aren't going to understand much beyond "you can't do this." And so then you say, "If you do this, Susie, then you're going to be in a timeout. And then if you do this, Johnny, then say he's 5, then you can't, ride your bike for 3 days or whatever it is." The discipline has to sting.
Mm.
That doesn't mean you have to be mean, but you have to follow through. If you have a 2 or your 3-year-old, they do something bad, you grab them, you put them in timeout. You don't even need to really say anything. They kick and scream and run out of the chair. pick them up, put them back in the chair. If you need to sit there and hold them on your lap, that's what you do. You train them for the consequence so that they start to realize eventually this isn't worth doing it. So you have to have clear boundaries because you're preparing them for life.
Yeah.
You and I have clear boundaries. Henry Cloud wrote a whole book on it because adults are not really good with boundaries. So we have to teach our kids those early on. In our home, you couldn't swear, you couldn't yell, you couldn't call names, and you couldn't wreck anybody's stuff. Right. So
That's a good one.
particularly my stuff, particularly my stuff. Yeah.
As my
So
kids were running through the laundry last night. Yes.
yeah,
Anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
But with small children, because they want to do so many things wrong, you have to pick your battles. Okay. So
Mm.
you pick things that are dangerous to them. If your 3-year-old paints all over the kitchen wall, they're not trying to be a bad kid. That's what kids do. Okay. But if you look at them and say, don't pick up that paintbrush, and you walk out of the room and you come back in and they picked up the paintbrush, then you've declared war. Daddy told you not to do that. Now you're in timeout or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the earlier you establish those clear boundaries and clear consequences, it's so much easier that they get older, because if you don't get your kids to listen to you and obey you when they're 5, when they're 16 and they have car keys in their hand and they're walking out the door and you say, no, you can't use the car. And they look at you and go, yeah, right, Dad. That's a dangerous situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how far I'm jumping ahead because I don't know that we'll get to all the age brackets, but I would love to hear you talk about, when do you feel like parents should introduce sexuality or talking about sex, or at least sexual things, to children? And what should those conversations look like? I mean, I feel like with the internet today and schools, it's becoming younger and younger. And so, yeah, I just want to hear you talk all about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to make a plea, and I will beg every father not to give their teenage girls a cell phone. 50% of the time, girls see porn on social media. It's the number one place that girls are sex trafficked. So please don't give your girls cell phones. That said, here's what I do. And I wrote a whole course and went through it on my website, How to Talk to Your Kids About Sex and Puberty. When your child starts asking you questions about babies and moms and dads, or they hear something at school, sometimes at 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and they come and say, I heard this, I don't really know what that means. Then you sort of begin to answer their question. And if they just say, okay, thanks, and they run away, you're done. But if they sit there and sort of say, I just don't understand, I don't understand, then you need to sit down and talk with them. And you don't need to get into the nitty-gritty early on. What you want to do is talk about, it's very important that this is between a mom and a dad, and that love is exchanged through physical touch and lying down together. And then you can even go, talk to them about intercourse and everything. Whenever you do it, your kid's going to hate it. They're going to be shocked, even if they're 16, because dad shouldn't know anything about it, right? And they don't want to hear about it because there are 2 people on earth that are not sexually active, and you're one of them. So no kid wants to hear from their dad or mom. However, it's important that you be the one to tell, because you want to tell it in the context it's positive and it's always couched in love and a committed relationship. So start the conversation when you feel they've heard something, they're thinking, and they have questions. Also, depending on the school that your kids are in, they may be getting an earful in kindergarten. They may be getting an earful in 5th grade. So always ask your kids what they're talking about at school. For instance, my granddaughter's 10, she's in a public school, and I pump her all the time. Are there any kids in your class, your school, that, like, girls who think, oh, it'd be so cool to be a boy, or a boy who thinks it'd be so cool to be a girl? What I'm asking is, are you hearing about transgender? And she goes, no, what are you talking about? She's set. But if I ask and she said, yeah, I would, with her parents' permission, talk her through that. And so you say, do you hear your friends talk about kissing and dating and moms and dads doing things, or where babies are born? And you'll know by looking in their eyes whether they've heard something or not. And if you think they've heard something, then you need to talk about it. It will be uncomfortable. It'll be uncomfortable for you, but that's okay. Once you get the first sort of conversation over, it's not a one and done. You have to continue to talk about it. How are things going? And you have a freshman in high school, and I know that a lot of kids this age are thinking about having sex, or any of your friends sexually active. Don't ask your kid, ask about their friends,
Mm.
because usually what their friends are doing may be what they're doing.
Wow.
So, you know
Yep.
what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yeah.
If your
Yeah.
daughter has 5 friends and 3 are sexually active, 50-50 that she is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Ooh.
but
I.
you got to be on top of it. Don't be scared, and don't be frightened, but your kids want to hear what they want to know, what you think about them being sexually active as they get older. Does my dad think it's okay, or does he think it's not okay? My dad never said don't, but man, I knew that I had to be careful about the boys I dated, even in college,
Mm.
because he wanted to know about them and what they were up to. And if they said, even if I was home on the weekend from college, I was going to be in at 1 a.m., he stayed awake.
Mm.
And
Well,
if, yeah,
this is huge. I'm curious your insight on this. Jeremy Pryor, he runs an organization called Family Teams. He made a post the other day. It was beautiful. He said, unpopular opinion, I think parenting is more important from 18 to 30 than I think he said like 5 to 12. And I think so many parents just think, oh, my kid's 18 now. It would try anyway. And it's crazy. But do you feel, I mean, I know you're a parent forever, but do you feel like that 18 to 30 is absolutely just as essential as childhood, teenage years, et cetera?
it is. And I'll tell you why. First of all, they're developing really mature thinking. So all the brain cells hopefully are in place in the early 20s, the frontal lobe development. Okay. And now you have very deep conversations about very important things
Hmm.
like your childhood, behaviors, faith, God. It is no longer you just telling them and sort of pouring all of your information and feelings and beliefs into them. Now you're at a point where you can actually discuss them and tell them why.
Hmm.
And tell them why you did what you did and why your faith is the way it is. And then they start dating and they have serious relationships and so forth. So you can help them navigate that, because there's going to be a lot of pain there. So you're absolutely right. I found, in my experience, those are critical years, because often kids aren't married. They're trying to figure out what they want to do, what their life is all about, why they're on the earth anyway. And so a lot of deep things come up. And if you have a good relationship, it doesn't have to be perfect, good relationship, your kids will come to you and ask the questions. And that's what you want. You want to raise your kids in a way that when they're 18 and 20 and beyond, you're the point person,
That's so good.
right? You're the point person. And if you are cruel to your kids or distant from your kids, or you bail on your kids because your wife has beaten you up and you're never allowed to see these kids because you're divorce, you're not the point person. So maintain connection all through those years, and you can become or reestablish yourself as the point person.
So good. We only have a few minutes left. I did want to hit on raising confident kids, and I know you talk a lot about strong fathers, strong daughters, raising women to be confident and not have girls to not have body image issues. And I'm sure with guys, it's having confidence and security. What are your best tips on raising confident kids who are confident who they are?
Well, I think first of all, you have to model it. You have to model that, your yes is yes and your no is no, so that you mean what you say, because words are important, and speech is all about, you have to have integrity in your speech.
Hmm.
So you model that. You have to model good character. Um, Second, and you want to model integrity, and you want to be truthful, and you want to be compassionate. And, there's a lot of fruits of the spirit. Then you want to compliment your kids on character. This is
Hmm.
something we never do. We're all about clapping at them if they make a goal, or if they get straight A's. My kid is great. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. No, you tell your child that you're proud of them when they missed the goal, they lost the game, but they were out there giving it their best. You give them a
Yeah.
big hug off the field and say, I am so proud of you. What are you talking about, Dad? Because you gave it your all.
Hmm.
Or your daughter's playing with your daughter, and one is 5 and one is 3, and your 5-year-old wants to just blow up at the 3-year-old, but she doesn't. She's
Hmm.
patient. I am so proud of you that you were so patient with your sister. I'm so proud of you that you persevere through your algebra, even though it's really hard for you. Who cares that you get a C? What really matters is that you go at it and at it and at it, and that's what's going to make you a winner in the end. So if you help your kids grow solid character in them, they're going to be very confident. Don't talk about their weight. Don't talk that much about how they look. Don't talk about their performance. Talk about their character, applaud them for it, and let them know very clearly that no matter what they do, and I'll tell kids this, even if you sit in a closet for the rest of your life, I will love you just the same. I'll knock on the door to ask you to come out, but if you don't, it's okay. Because a lot of kids today, Christian kids, any kids, they all feel so much pressure that if they don't A, B, and C, their parents are not going to love them. And you think about the way we interact with our kids, we unwittingly or subconsciously communicate that to them. We coach their games and clap, clap, clap. And then we tell them how great they are at this and this and this. Kids get the message. I have to continue to be great at that to get my dad's attention. Because the only time I ever see my dad really happy is when I'm doing well in school or in a sport. Ouch. So be very, very careful. Don't show up at their practices, please, unless you're their coach. Let them let them be. Let them be, and don't talk about it all the time, because that kids so desperately want to please their parents, particularly their dad, that if they see that you're happy with something they're doing, they'll keep doing it.
Wow.
They'll keep doing it even if they hate it. And then they'll burn out sophomore year in high school. That's when it happens.
Oh, Dr. Meg, this conversation did not disappoint, and I'll just leave this open-ended as we close. Anything you want to talk about or leave our leaders listening to this with?
I would encourage dads to just, even though there are times you want to give up, don't. If there are times you've made mistakes and you're discouraged about them, apologize to your kids and ask God to help you. Lean on God. Think about, we always feel like failures, and we feel like, oh my gosh, my kids are, I'm going to fail my kids. Well, we can't judge our parenting on our kids' failure or success. Look at God. I mean, he's the perfect parent, and he's got a lot of messed up kids. Right? So you can be a perfect parent, and your kids are still going to do what they do. So just give it your best and love them and apologize. And keep it simple. Wow. Your kids don't want the stuff you want to give them. Just keep it simple.
Well, Dr. Meeker, thank you for your faithfulness to God's call in your life, to investing in parents and dads. I know it's made a tremendous difference, and you're not done yet. And so we'll include links to, I know you talked about the link to the course on talking to your kids about sex. We talked about your coaching and all the other ways that people can connect with you. We'll put in the show notes. And just thank you again for the conversation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, hey, leader, thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Dr. Meeker. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. You can find ways to connect with her and links to everything that we discussed in the show notes at l3leadership.org/416. I also want to thank our sponsor again, Andosha Marketing Solutions. They are the producers of this podcast. They're great friends, and if you were looking for help with anything related to marketing in your organization, I cannot recommend them enough. I've recommended them to many people who use them, and they've all given the thumbs up and are so happy with the work that they've done. You can learn more about Andosha at andosha.com. That's ANDOCIA.com. And as always, I like to end every episode with a quote, and today I'll quote David McKee, who said this. He said, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." So true, David. Thank you. That's going to wrap up our podcast for today. As always, leader, remember this. Don't quit. Keep leading. The world desperately needs your leadership. We'll talk to you next episode.